Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be showing you how I, one, mix my DIY pouring medium, two, how I mix my pouring medium into my acrylic paint, and three, how I mix my pigments to use in fluid art. I'll actually be showing you two different ways that I do this. And if you stick around to the end of the video, if you make it that far, I have a special code for you for 10% off your order at ericahughesart.com. Okay, so we're going to get into this straight away. So, pouring medium. My pouring medium is a mixture of floetrol. That is USA floetrol or the Europe floetrol, which they call ultrol. Today I'm using the ultrol, so that's what I have on hand. Then the second part of my pouring medium is either heavy or regular gel gloss by Golden. So I'm using regular gel gloss today. I normally use heavy. I just like a thicker pouring medium. But they didn't have heavy, so I went for regular. So let's see if you guys can see that. So floetrol and gel. Gloss gel. Make sure it's gloss, not semi-gloss, not matte. Make sure it's gloss. Okay, so my recipe is roughly 1/4 gel to 3/4 floetrol. So 1/4 gel and then 3/4 floetrol, roughly. I don't measure. That's just how I am for multiple reasons, and we'll go over that throughout this video. Okay, so today I'm going to be mixing in a, what is this, 16-ounce plastic cup. So I'm going to be filling roughly a quarter of this with my gel, and then the rest with floetrol. Doesn't matter the size container. If I was going to be making a bigger batch, today I'm just making a small one because I'm nearly out of floetrol anyway. This pitcher is, 2,000 ml. So you would roughly put 500 ml or so of the gel, rest with floetrol, leaving a little space for mixing. So it doesn't matter the size of your container. Just get in there roughly a quarter of the gel and 3/4 floetrol. How I mix this. Shake my floetrol. Now at first I'm going to put a small bit on the bottom of the cup just to make it easier to mix my gel. And I always filter, so you can use a strainer or something on your bottle. Today I'm using something attached to my bottle with a hair tie. So I'm just going to squirt in just a little bit just for easier mixing. I'll leave that open because we're going to use it in a second. Then I'm going to take my gel and I'll show you guys what this looks like. Now, again, this is the regular. Okay. So I'm going to fill approximately a quarter of this cup. As long as my gel is in there with my floetrol, I'm happy. Everything works well. So I don't need to measure. Just as long as I have roughly a quarter gel, 3/4 floetrol. I'll look at a little bit more. Now in the beginning when you're mixing this up, you're going to slowly add some floetrol just to incorporate the gel and the floetrol together to make for easier mixing, especially if you are mixing a larger quantity. And no lazy mixing. Actually take the time to mix it in there. You want it nice and smooth and creamy. So I was just incorporating that little bit of floetrol that I added in the beginning. Now I'm going to add some more floetrol. And I noticed with the ultrol, it's definitely a lot more thick than the USA floetrol. No worries. This is a very thick pouring medium, regardless of what floetrol you use. So I'm just mixing this all so it doesn't get lumpy. It's kind of like making gravy. You want to add a little bit at a time until it's more runny, and then you can just kind of fill up the cup and then just give it a good mix. So it's starting to be more runnier than that gel was. Add some more floetrol. Let me just make sure that my camera hasn't stopped recording, because that happens sometimes. And just to keep the video short and sweet and to the point, I probably will speed some of this mixing up for you guys. And again, this pouring medium can be used for multiple fluid art techniques, not just the blowouts that you guys probably mostly see me doing on this channel. Okay, so now it's getting a little bit more runny. So I'm just going to fill the rest up with floetrol, mix it in really well, and then we're done with our pouring medium. See, I'm nearly out of floetrol. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll leave the lid, or I'll put the screw on this and kind of let it sit upside down, and then get the rest out at some stage instead of wasting it. Oops. Flaming floetrol. So I put this over here. I will write down all the, or type out all the ingredients, well, the 2 ingredients, in the description box below. So you could probably just copy and paste it somewhere. Okay, and I'll bring this close to the camera so you guys can see the consistency of it. Now, if you mix this at home and it's thinner because you're using the USA floetrol, that is perfectly fine. It's not going to be too far off. Let me put my arm around here. So you see it's nice and creamy and thick. So that is my pouring medium. Okay, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I will answer them down there. Let's see, things to note. This gel that I've added into the floetrol is now packing my pouring medium with loads of binder. The gel also adds transparency to the floetrol, and the gel also adds some gloss to the matte drying floetrol. All right, moving on. Okay, so today we're going to mix up, because I'm going to be using this color in a pour this evening. So you guys are going to watch me mix it up. This is a color that is my absolute favorite color. It's a self-mix color, and I will be dropping the video on how I make this color and another color. And that is actually going to be measured out so you guys can get the proper shade. But I will show you the color, and I will show you the thickness of this. This is just acrylic paint. There's nothing else in this. Hopefully you can see the color on the camera. The actual color. Okay, so we're gonna mix this, we're gonna get this flow ready, and I'm gonna get it down to the consistency I need it to. First, what I like to do is just put a little bit of my pouring medium. Move this a little closer for you guys. A little bit of my pouring medium that we just mixed up at the bottom of the cup. Just makes it easier to mix. And again, I'm not measuring how much pouring medium I'm putting into my paint for multiple reasons, which I'll go over at the end of this part of the video. Okay, so I have my pouring medium, a little bit of pouring medium at the bottom of the cup, just to help me mix this. I'm going to take my acrylic paint and add it in here. If you're making a big batch, a small batch, it doesn't matter. We're doing the same thing. We're trying to get this acrylic paint flow ready. So if I was mixing a giant batch of it, I would be doing the same thing. A smaller batch of it, I would be doing the same thing. I'm just adding my paint to some pouring medium to get it flow ready. I'm going to save a little bit of this for something else. Okay, so now I have that in there. I'm just going to mix it just to incorporate that floetrol that was, or the pouring medium that was at the bottom of the cup. You can already see it's not as thick. It's still very thick, but it's a little bit more, well, not really, it's pretty thick. So we add pouring medium. And I kind of know how much by eye to add to my paint to get it flow ready. Might take you guys, a few tries. So start slow. Add smaller amounts in the beginning. And just mix that. Okay, it's still kind of not as flow ready as I want it to be, so we're going to add a little bit more. Now, as long as I have pouring medium in there and it's not looking like this, see how thick that is and how it hardly wants to come off the stick, but now we're adding the floetrol, so it's starting to get a bit more runny. And I'm going to add a little bit more for two reasons. I want it to be a little bit runnier and volume. I need a lot of this color, so it's a very forgiving recipe. You can add more to it, to your paints, just to get volume. You can add more to your paints to turn a heavily opaque color to have it be a little bit more transparent. So that's another reason why I don't measure. Okay, so see how it's runnier now. So I'm going to say I'm flow ready. So what I have to do now, see, compared to this, it's hard to do it with two, but see, and that's just not really gonna do anything except for that. Let me get this out of the way. So now I have my paint. It's flow ready for my liking. Now I have to decide what technique in fluid art I'm going to be doing. So am I going to be doing a blowout, which most likely, yes, I am with this, or a ring pour, straight pour, a swipe. You decide, and then you take this paint and you thin it down to the consistency that you want with water. So I know that this is going to be used for a hairdryer blowout. So now I'm going to thin it down with water. I'm going to say to you guys to start off slowly with the water. I've been doing this for so long that I already know how much water I'm going to need roughly So you're going to see me pour water in here and you're going to be like, whoa, that's a lot of water. But just trust me and trust the process. If you mix it and it's too thin, if you've added too much water, you can always add a little bit of pouring medium or add a little bit more paint to thicken it up. So it's not lost. You can save it. It's not a big deal. So I'm going to add some water. I usually pour it in until the surface is covered, like so. Now, this is for my blowouts. Okay, so some might do maybe a ring pour, so they would stop there. But I'm not, I'm doing a blowout, so I'm going to add more water. Okay, we're getting there, and I will show you guys the trick I use to know when I am at my desired consistency. And take your time mixing and all that. I'm kind of not rushing, but I'm just kind of going quicker so the video's not 8 hours long. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys what I do to test my consistency. In the cup, no drip test or anything like that. And a thing to note is for my blowouts, from what I've noticed and seen on other videos, I like a thicker consistency rather than thin. So I kind of push it as much as my hair dryer will allow me to. So I notice a lot of people like a sinkhole when their stream hits the surface of the paint, when they're holding their stick about there. To me, that's too thin for me. So let me come around to the camera. Okay, so I always hold my mixing utensil roughly like 2 inches above the surface of the paint in the cup when I'm testing my consistency. Now, see how it's just marrying into the surface? That's what I like for my blowouts. Now, if I saw this, which I'll show you in just a second, happening when my mixing tool was 2 inches down here or above the surface, if I saw a sinkhole like this, see the sinkhole? So if that was happening when I was here, it would be too thin. So I'd have to thicken it up. So what I do, roughly 2 inches or so above the surface, the paint in the cup, not sinking, I'm not getting a huge mound, it's kind of just marrying right into that. So I'm happy with that. And another little trick I do, not trick, but I do want to see the sinkhole when I'm holding the mixing stick, probably 4 to 6 inches above the paint in the cup. So watch, I'll show you. So you see the sinkhole there? So I'm happy with that. I gotta mix this better, but the sinkhole. But if that was happening down here, it would be too thin. I hope that makes sense to you guys. Okay. Okay, so now we have pouring medium and acrylic paint mixed up for a future blowout. Okay, so next we are going to mix up some pigments. Be right back. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys how I mix my pigments for fluid art. I do this 2 different ways. There's multiple ways, but I do 2 ways, and I'm going to show you both those ways. So first, I'm going to show you how I mix my pigment with my pouring medium. So I will start off with my pouring medium that we mixed in the beginning of this video. And I'm just going to put some at the bottom of the cup. And we're going to take some water. And my goal here is to thin this pouring medium down to a skim milk-like consistency. I'll show you guys. I'm going to add some water. I'm going to thin this pouring medium right down. So this is going to be to wet my pigments before we add the actual pouring medium without the water mixed into it. You'll see. It's not complicated. And what I love about this is you are still sticking with just your 2-ingredient pouring medium. You're not having to add other product, anything like that. And again, that gel that is in the floetrol is packed with binder, so you're going to have binder for your pigment. Okay, so I'm going to thin it down more. I'll bring you guys right into this so you can see the consistency. Let me just get it there. And this doesn't have to be, you know, if you go too thin, it's fine. If you're finding you're having a difficult time mixing in your pigments, you can always add more water. It's not everything's fixable. I'm going to add a little bit more water. Okay, I can already tell that I'm happy with that. So I'll bring this up to the camera for you guys to see. Okay, so again, this here, pouring medium in water, is to wet down my pigments. And I want it to look like skim milk. It's just watery. Okay? So what I like to do to save time is make a big batch of this and just add it to a container. So I always have it at hand if I need to mix up a pigment. So we have that. Let that cup dry and then we'll peel that out. Get my lid and just store it. It's covered. All good. I'll get this water out of the way and then we will mix up a pigment. Okay, let's get another cup. I will wash or let this paint dry and reuse the cups, don't worry. So first thing is first, we are going to mix this little pigment, or this little piggy pigment, Wild Atlantic, my signature color, with this little piggy. And when you're mixing pigments, you should wear a mask and just be mindful you don't want to be breathing in all the fine particles that are floating around in the air. So slowly take off the lid, especially if you're opening up a new jar, and the seal. Okay, so first thing is first. You can hear Izzy in the background barking probably. Gonna add some of this that we just mixed to the bottom. You want to definitely add this first. Just enough to cover. Well, I'm gonna make a bigger batch, so. And I need another stick. Okay, so again, just open your jar nice and slow. There's a new seal on this one. Oh, I love this color. You can see it. Okay. So now I'm gonna, when I'm mixing pigments, I always go based off of like color saturation. So I'm gonna make a bigger batch of this. So I'm gonna do 2 big jumbo sticks. Okay, and then you just put your lid on straight away. And you want to slowly mix this until they're wet, so they're not flying around. Once they're all wet, you can really kind of just go at it. Okay, so this is what I have so far. So now I'm going to, you always want to scrape the sides of your cup really good. You want to, I always kind of put my stick against my thumb to kind of get all that pigment off the stick. Okay, and once they're all wet, you can really go at it. And you want to mix this. You want to take your time with this. Some pigments take more mixing than others because some of them have more mica in them, mica powder in them. Those ones tend to just melt right in and you don't have to, they're just easier to mix. The ones that have more pigment in them rather than mica, those tend to lump up. So you got to be careful and take your time at this stage to make sure you don't see any powdery flecks or flakes, whatever, in there. And I always kind of rub some off the side of the plastic cup, and you could kind of see if there's any lumps in there. And this one is actually mixing nice and beautifully. Okay, I'll bring you guys in and show you. Oh, I saw a few chunks. So again, you just want to take your time and really get those lumps and it all dispersed properly. Make sure you get the bottom of the container you're mixing in. I'll bring this up to you guys. You guys are going to see a lot of air bubbles, but that's okay. Those are air bubbles. But you can see how loose and beautiful those are. Okay, so once I have that, I'm happy with my mix. And I'm just going around to make sure that I got all the lumps out. And it's nice and smooth. I'm going to then add my pouring medium. So again, I mix based off of color saturation. Sometimes I want this to be really heavy, true to color in the jar. So I wouldn't add as much pouring medium, or I might add more powder or pigment. Sometimes I might want a lighter version of it, a more transparent version of it. So I'll add even more pouring medium or less powder. That's just how I mix. So I'm going to drop in some pouring medium. And then just the same thing, just mix, scraping the sides. And this pouring medium dries clear. I know floetrol can sometimes dry, floetrol on its own can sometimes dry cloudy. But the gel adds transparency to that floetrol. Okay, and you can see it's thickened up because my pouring medium is so thick. That's another actually that's another reason why I like that really thick pouring medium, is because I use pigments a lot. So I need something that's going to keep them or make them thick for fluid art. Okay, so I still have that Wild Atlantic color that I love I know I can add a little bit more floetrol, or it's not floetrol, pouring medium, because it's not just floetrol. I even go a little bit more because I want a lot of this. Oops. No, 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 no. I don't want to be dealing with that. So I'm going to be using this for a blowout. So keep in mind, I'm going to have to add some water to this to thin it down to the consistency, just like we did with our acrylic paint. We added the pouring medium and got our paint flow ready. And then we thinned it down with water to get to desired consistency. Okay, so you can see that's leaving mounds, and I need to get it to my blowout consistency. So now we will add a little bit of water. Now for this, add your water slow for the pigments. They thin down a lot faster because you're not, the pigments aren't, you know, an acrylic paint when you're starting. So you're not going to have a really thick, heavy, thick mixture. Okay, so it's getting there. Now with my pigments, I like to go a little bit, just a tad thicker. Not a big deal if you don't, but I just like to go a tad, even with metallics, like any metallic acrylic paint. I always like to go a little bit thicker than my regular paints. The tiniest bit thicker. I'll show you as soon as I get there. And I'm there. Okay, let's see. It's always so hard to show this on camera. As you can see, this is a little bit thicker than the acrylic paint. But I'm happy with that. And I'm gonna keep it there. That's for my blowouts. Now, if your hair dryer can't handle that, go a little bit thinner. Add a little bit more water. I think mine is a travel hair dryer. It's 1200 watts, I believe. Babyless travel hair dryer. I don't know about the name. Babyless. I don't like that name. Random. Okay, so that is one way that I mix my pigments. I will show you another way if you'd like. If you don't want to, feel free to fast forward. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys how I mix my pigments another way. Sometimes I might be out of pouring medium. Sometimes I just might not be in the mood to mix pouring medium. So I will paint with just acrylic paint. Only Amsterdam will do this really though. Acrylic paint and water. So I would mix my acrylic paints with just water until I got straight up to the consistency. I'd just keep adding water until I got to my blowout consistency. Add the water slowly, just like making gravy. Okay, so this is how I turn my pigments into a paint. When I'm painting, when I'm doing fluid art using just paint and water, not my pouring medium. So I still use the golden either heavy or regular gel gloss. What we're going to do with this is we're going to take some, put it at the bottom and close this up. Get some water, basically doing the same thing we did with my pouring medium, but we're just using the gel, we're not using pouring medium. You start slow. We're going to thin this right down, and we're going to wet or disperse our pigment into this mixture. So it'll look like cottage cheese there for a second. And this is just another way. If you didn't want to, you know, if you don't want to mix my pouring medium and you just want to use paint and water, this is a way that you can do it. And it works great. And we're just going to keep adding water to this gel until it's that skim milk consistency. If you do this, you definitely want to let your, if you're using just the paint and water, or turning your pigments into paint and then thinning them with water, you're going to have a lot of air bubbles. So it's good to do it a few hours before you start painting. Now, have I waited? No. I just blow the air, or pop the air bubbles with my hairdryer when I'm painting. Or you can use a torch, but I just do it with my hairdryer these days. Okay. So this is at that consistency. It's very thin. It's like skim milk. I'm going to get a dry stick. You don't want to put a wet stick in there. Okay, and again, this is Brulee by this little Piggy Pigments, and it's an interference. Shifts to, looks white, actually looks cream, and then goes to copper. Sometimes I get a magenta shift off of it as well. Like a coppery magenta shift. It's really gorgeous. And close that up right away, and again, mix very slow, just until those powders are wet. Okay. Now, same deal. You just want to take your time and get that all melted in. This one mixes wet really well as well. Doesn't take as long to disperse because there's more mica in it, and it just kind of just turns into silk. It's just really nice. So it's nearly done. Sometimes it can be hard to tell if you're looking at a lump or an air bubble. So that's why I kind of like to smear some around the clear cup, and then you can really see that, okay, those are definitely air bubbles. You'll know when you're looking at like a clump of pigment or something. You scrape the bottom, scrape the sides, smear your stick on your thumb just to get it all out there. Okay. So there we go. You see all those air bubbles on my stick and in the cup. It's frothy almost. Not froth, but just bubbly. That's why if you have the time, mix ahead. Okay, so there's that. Now to turn that into not a watery liquid, we are going to add more gel. It may seem like a long process, but it's really not. It's really simple. Once you get the hang of it, and it's actually enjoyable, well, if you're anything like me and like mixing paint. And keep your eye out for my next mixing video, because I'm going to show you guys how I mix. And that's going to be measured. How I mix my favorite color. And there might be another color or two in that video as well. I'm not sure yet. Okay, so again, this is going to look like cottage cheesy for a minute. We're just mixing in that gel, just like making gravy. So now what we're doing is we're turning that liquid into a paint. So there's no pouring medium in here. But that gel is packing this. It has such great binder in it that it's just, I love Golden. Their gels. I mean, all their products, but I used to use a lot of Golden paints, but they're a lot more expensive over here in Ireland. because, you know, they import them from the States. But the Amsterdam paint's a lot cheaper than where you guys... a lot cheaper here than in the US. Because I'm a lot closer than to where they make them than my US viewers are. Okay, so now I'll bring you in. We have a gorgeous interference. This little pigment, or this little piggy pigment paint. Let's see if you can see it. Oh, this video is going to be way long. Okay, so there's our paint. So now we're going to thin down with water until we get to the desired consistency. I'm going for a blowout, so you know the drill. And that gel dries clear as well. So you're actually not getting the true color. That's how most paints are. All paints, really. When they're wet, they're lighter, and then when they dry, they go darker. They're more saturated. You know, keeping in mind that when I'm using pigments or metallics, I like them to be a little bit thicker for my blowouts than my regular acrylic paint. A little bit more, and then I'm gonna be done with that. And this is so, like, I can see just by looking at that pigment that if I wanted more volume, I'm comfortable enough where I know that I can add more gel just to give me more volume and still have that gorgeous interference piggy popping. All right, and I'm happy with that. Well, I have to bring these in. It's hard to get. I'm watching the camera through the camera while I'm doing this. But there we have it. Okay, so today I showed you guys how I make my pouring medium, how I mix my paint and pouring medium, how I mix my pigments with my pouring medium, and how I turn my pigments into paint and then use them with just water, thinning them with just water for fluid art. But yeah, I think that's it. Again, if you guys have any questions, just leave them under the video. There's a comment section below. If you found any value from this video, please subscribe, like, and share. It helps support this channel. And finally, if you've made it to the end of this video, here is a 10% off code for anything on my website at ericahughesart.com. The code is EHA10. We have a lot of new products coming out over the next few weeks/months. You can sign up to my website for special promotions, discounts, giveaways, and new product alerts. But anyway, if you guys have questions, please let me know in the comments below. And thank you so much for being here. And I know this video is well overdue, so sorry about that, but here it is. Hopefully it helps you guys out. And yeah, I will talk to you soon. Bye.